And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting this January 22nd, 2015. I'll ask our Deputy County Administrator, Nancy Newton, to do the roll.
Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Schrader?
Here.
Commissioner Savas?
Here.
Chair Ludlow?
Here. All please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to, we have some new faces up here. Nancy Newton, our Deputy County Administrator. Caroline Hill is taking over for Mary Rathke today, and Chris Storey as legal counsel. So it's time for citizens communication, and unless there's any other cards, a lot of people here, only one card, and this is rare. No, it's not. Les Poole wants to speak. So there's Mac Woods is raising that. So come on forward, Mac.
Good morning. Les Poole, Clackamas County. I just wanted to comment a little follow-up on a subject that's becoming more and more significant to everyone, and it's been significant in my mind for a long time, that Metro is a beast. Metro is an entity that does some good work. They do some very good things, but when you look at the track record for planning, when you objectively, and I mean objectively, do a little bit of research, it's not that hard to find out that Metro has too much control over local communities and local governments. You've got 400,000 people in Clackamas County. We stretch all the way to the top of Mount Hood. We've got so many growing pains, we can't even count them. And along comes Metro with another unfunded mandate, which of course is going to require more taxes. Now, I don't care how conservative or liberal or Democrat or commie you may be. We're all in trouble. We're in deep doo-doo. And I don't see how, to connect it to Clackamas County, I don't see how we're ever going to get the roads taken care of unless the county shows some really bold leadership. And in spite of the fluff that I've read here and there, I'm very, very pleased that the county is pursuing some flexibility with administering this moving target that Metro has imposed on the region. And let's make no mistake, Metro finances grants with so many strings attached, I can't count them. Metro's had no accountability for what happened in Damascus. Having been involved in that fiasco for 15 years, I can assure you that regardless of any opinion about what Metro does right with parks and recycling, encouraging redevelopment downtown, we're all good with that. But the rest of it, the fact that Metro has so much statutory control over what happens in the region is the issue that's really, really underneath everything that's going on. And Metro is authorizing what TriMet is doing. So let's make no mistake what Metro is. And I encourage folks to watch what I've said here. And last week I spoke at Metro. You can go online and watch it on video. You'll hear very clearly what I've been saying over and over. And I'm getting flooded with people that are endorsing what I'm saying, or I wouldn't be here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Newton, we have some public hearings.
Nope, you got Mac Woods.
Mac, I called you forward.
To speak on public hearing, the card's back there, but
I think you should have a seat.
thank you, Chair Ludlow. And other Clackamas County Commissioners, I'm MacArthur Woods, live in the county. A lot of people know me, veterans, and that's exactly why what I want to talk about today, and it ties in with taxes. But just a few weeks ago, Chair Ludlow, you read a script that all the veterans, and we have lots of them, in the county that is getting fed up to hear with their property taxes. It's ridiculous, and it's time for us to speak up. What I want to say first off is here today at 2:30, there's some kind of a meeting that I don't know what they're all about, but it's regarding veterans. And think about this, veterans out there in the field. If you're listening to this live today, get on your wheelchair if you're a disabled veteran and come on in. We cannot even go talk to a veteran service officer today on Friday because this building is not open on Friday for the public. That's ridiculous. If they took just a 1/1000th of what we pay in taxes and pay the cotton pick and electric bill, which is the reason they scooted it down to a 4-day work week, let's wake up. Get on these cotton picking people that's making the rules and get them out. We don't need them to represent us. Whether it's a governor that spent over $100 million, as we know, taxpayers' money, not to mention the 30 he mentioned on the CRC, taxpayers' money dead on arrival. It's time to make some changes, and veterans, we can do it. I want to read what you read, Chair Lowe. Hats off to you for reading this about the veterans. The veteran, this is 2 or 3 weeks ago, my friend, thank you. It's the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of the press. It's the veteran, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It's the veteran, not the campus cruise organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It's the veteran who salutes the flag and serves beneath the flag and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who has given the protester the freedom to burn the flag. And it's all these cotton-picking people that's overpaid, I'm talking about politicians from the governor on down to right here, that is not standing up for the veterans as they raise our taxes. Here's an example. This started in 1955. I just run into a gentleman out in the parking lot. There's a reason I'm late. Bob. He's selling his house because he can't pay the taxes. He's a veteran, and we got to put a stop to this nonsense, and we can do it, veterans. Come on in. More power. Thank you, Chair Ludlow.
Thank you, Mac. And now, I'm pretty sure, Ms. Newton, it is time for public hearings.
It is indeed.
Push your button.
I believe we are discussing now a boundary change proposal. CL 14-006, annexation to Clackamas County Rural Fire Protection District Number 1. On hand to assist with this is Chris Storey with County Counsel, Ken Martin, our boundary change consultant. And we actually have 3 separate boundary change proposals. I'm assuming you would like to take these individually.
That would
Chris?
be the appropriate procedure, yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. This first boundary proposal, it may seem a little bit odd in that the numbering system suggests that 5 should come before 6, but we did it this way because the property that we'll be discussing in the next 2 public hearings is the same, being annexed into 2 different districts, so we thought it would be more efficient if there were commenters to have this one first. This is an annexation of a property into the fire district. It is located in the rural area between Estacada and Molalla, and Ken has put together a great staff report outlining the issues that you should consider as the boundary consultant preparing the staff report for your review. So, Ken.
This is a fairly straightforward proposal. The main property owners in this area want to build a house, and in order to do that, they need to show that they have fire protection. They're able to build a house other than that, and they're simply waiting for this approval so that they can move forward with their property. The district can provide service, albeit at a rural level in this area, and this will fill in a gap between this district and the Estacada district. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Any clarifying questions, Commissioners? All right. We're going to open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to speak on this matter. All right. We'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move we approve the board order for boundary change proposal CL 14-006, annexation to Clackamas County Rural Fire Protection District Number 1.
Second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Next.
Okay. Did you want me to read this? I was going to read this into the record. We have boundary change proposal CL 14-005, annexation to Clackamas County Service District Number 1.
And to clarify for those watching at home, while the board is the governing body of Clackamas County Service District Number 1, you are not sitting as the governing body of Clackamas County Service District Number 1. You are sitting as the county commission making boundary decisions. Clackamas County Service District Number 1 has already indicated that they have the availability and capacity to serve this property, and pursuant to the board's direction, coordination has been made with the city of Happy Valley regarding the inclusion of this property within the city of Happy Valley to receive additional urban services. It's located just to the east of 145th Avenue, somewhat near the Willamette Cemetery. Ken?
Ken, did you have anything more?
It's a 30-acre annexation. The district's got the service. The developers are going to build a planned unit development, 66 units, and it's a go as far as we're concerned.
All right. So I'll open the public hearing and ask for anybody, if anyone would like to speak on this matter. All right. Close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move we approve the board order for boundary change proposal CL 14-005, annexation to Clackamas County Service District Number 1.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Further discussion. You will note, and this is great news if somebody wants to build in Clackamas County. But one of the things that will be coming before this board, actually quite soon, is the whole idea of capacity in our sewage treatment plants. Our Tri-City plant can certainly handle more, but you have to get it there. And one thing is a pipe extending into Happy Valley, Damascus area, and certainly the other is digesters. So I see that the little bit, 66 units pecking away at really what is probably down to, we've been told, 2,000 units more we can serve. And that is going to necessitate some rate changes in some cities and some SDC consideration, system development charge consideration. I know that doesn't relate directly to this, but just for an FYI. Any further discussion on this matter? All right, we'll do the poll.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 5-0. Next.
Finally, we have a boundary change proposal CL 14-008, annexation to Sunrise Water Authority.
And as indicated before, this is the exact same property that was just covered under CL 14005, 30 acres out by 145th Street. In this instance, annexing into Sunrise to get water service and not sewer service.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners? Open the public hearing. Anybody wishes to speak on this? They're all waiting until later. You can feel it. You'd like to speak, sir? Yes, I have a question. Come on forward here. And then, you probably should fill out a green card afterwards and turn it in so we can keep a record of who you are. Go ahead.
I live at 1516 Southeast St. Andrews Court, and I am new to Oregon. I haven't been living here for close to a year.
What's your name?
Of course, it's different than Michigan, very much different. I'm looking at the document that it shows in there, the annexation goes direct to my property line. What next to my property line is like a river, a big dip in trees that are not going to cannot be disturbed because I try to have some removed. Why does the annexation goes right to my property line if that property cannot be used for anything?
If I understand correctly, the question you're asking is why would you annex the whole parcel if you cannot develop the whole parcel?
Yeah.
The default position for annexations is you include the whole parcel. The question of whether or not it's within the boundary of the service district is different from whether or not a property can be developed fully. There may be buffer or reservation for screening, stormwater service, water mitigation, those sorts of things, but that would not change whether or not a piece of the property. And frankly, from a tracking standpoint, some service districts charge property taxes on the whole property, and although not in the case of sewer, which would just be a rate-based. So the default position for annexations is the full property is annexed in or out of.
Yeah, it's
jurisdiction.
confusing because the annexation goes to the line, to the property line, and there is, I understand, a river, like a little river, where the property cannot be disturbed. Why annex it to the line when you know you cannot disturb that property?
As he mentioned, it's a requirement. He called it default, but it's a requirement that all of it be annexed.
But that does not mean, to be clear, that does not mean that the whole property will be developed in that way. There are still other land use issues that have to be addressed and conditions of approval to address other development requirements that will include appropriate management of the boundary of the property.
I tried to contact people who were supposed to know this. No, it's not my area, it's somebody else's area, and I did not get the answer to it. And I know you got to be what's got to be, but I was confused, and thank you.
Well, sir, again, if you would fill out a green card with your contact information, we can have the manager of planning contact you probably, and somebody to explain it better to you. Is that okay?
Thank you for the information.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
thank you.
fill that out and turn it right back into her, and that'll be great. Anybody else? All right, close the public hearing, and any further discussion? Caroline?
I move we approve, do we have to make the motion?
We have made
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
There's
I
a-
move we approve board order for boundary change proposal CL 14-008, annexation to the Sunrise Water Authority.
Second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Savas, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Discussion? All right, Caroline.
Okay, Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Chair Ludlow.
Aye, passes 5-0. Thank you, Ken. And now we come to a discussion item. So, Mr. McCallister is here. Call him forward.
You'd like me to lead off?
Well,
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
well, yeah, I don't usually do this part, you guys. This is not my script. So this has to do with the approval of the Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division 2015-2016 Work Plan. And so I have introduced Mr. McCallister, who will explain it further.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Mike McCallister, Planning Director. And as Chair Ludlow mentioned, so you're here to consider and hopefully adopt the Planning and Zoning Division Work Program for 2015-2016 budget year, which is July 2015 through June 2016. You have in your packet of materials a number of items, including a staff report, which is a summary of all the information, including a staff recommendation and a Planning Commission recommendation. You also have in attachment 1 a summary of the public outreach and notice requirements that we did, soliciting comments from the public in CPOs and hamlets and villages for consideration in the work program. In attachment 2, there's a table that provides a little bit more detail, summary detail about each of the projects that the staff recommended and those that were received from the public and some general responses around those projects. And then in attachment 3, you have a document that gives you a sort of a status update on the 5-year audit of the zoning and development ordinance that I'm sure you're very, very well aware of, and also a more detailed response to the projects that were received from the public as well, from the staff, as well as the staff recommendation on that particular project and what the Planning Commission recommended on that particular project. And then lastly, you have a number of exhibits, which is the written correspondence and email correspondence that the Planning Division received when we solicited outreach for this project. That's in attachment 4. In addition to that, this morning you received, I believe you received another email, some email correspondence from Thelma Hagenmiller. I believe a copy of that was put, and you have a copy, each of them provided a copy of that. And also received something yesterday from Pat Russell, who is the Clackamas CPO, and I also put a copy of that correspondence in front of you this morning. A little background before I talk about the recommendations is, as you know, the Planning and Zoning Division Work Program for the last several years has been focused around a 5-year audit of the zoning and development ordinance. We are currently in year 3. And for the most part, in year 1, we completed all the industrial zoning districts. In year 2, we completed a review of all the, for the most part, all the urban zoning districts, the commercial and multifamily and low-density residential districts, as well as some procedural standards. What is proposed in year, and so we're in year 3 right now, which is more of a focus on the rural zoning districts, including the zoning districts up in Mount Hood, and some other discretionary permit standards. That's all ongoing right now. The scope of that project was approved last year by the board. So we're ongoing. In the perfect world, we'll finish that up at the end of June. It's likely to go on a few months after that. We've been a little bit behind on the audit every year. If you recall, during the first year, we did the industrial lands, and there was appeal of that decision to LUBA, and it kind of extended us out a couple months beyond the budget year. So we're tracking a little bit behind. The bottom line is we're still on schedule to complete the audit in a 5-year process. Year 4, if it's approved by the board, would focus on 2 sections of the zoning ordinance that are called the Section 700 standards. Those are in effect our overlay zoning districts, include airport overlays, historic protection overlays, and a lot of environmental overlays. The other section is the 800 sections. Those are called special use standards. There's about 25 special use standards that apply to churches and schools and daycare facilities and home occupations and all those sorts. So those are what are proposed in year 4 of the audit. Year 5 was always intended to be a cleanup. Kind of things we missed in the first 4 years that we know about, and some other cleanup. So we're still on track to complete the audit in a 5-year period. In addition to all the material that you have in your packet, I would anticipate today during testimony you will read some comments about a proposal to limit or prohibit upzoning in low-density residential areas in the McLaughlin Boulevard area, generally between Gladstone and Milwaukee. So that's something that you can also consider in the work program. important to recognize all the projects that are being considered are funded by general fund dollars. So these are not, these are things that would be done in the context of the Planning and Zoning Division's work program and budget. There are not grant dollars and things being pursued for these projects this time. So in the table that you have, there's a lot of projects, including the ones proposed by staff. In a perfect world, we do all of them. However, the staff resources aren't adequate to do all of those. So it will require the board to prioritize those projects in light of the staffing resources and limited resources of the Planning and Zoning Division for next year. As part of this process, we solicit outreach, as I mentioned, to a large variety of stakeholders, including the community planning organizations, hamlets, and villages. We held a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission that considered this work program, took testimony. That was on December 8, 2014, and we notified and advertised for that public hearing. The staff provided a recommendation to the Planning Commission at that meeting, and our recommendation at that time was to include in the work program the year 4 work in the zoning and development ordinance audit, which is a review of the Section 700 and Section 800 standards that I just mentioned. The Planning Commission took testimony, considered all the written comments, and their recommendation was for the board to consider adopting or looking at a Park Avenue station area plan around the new light rail station. There was recognition that at that time that the scope and what was really looking at for that plan was unknown. And there was also recognition by the Planning Commission, if the board decided to do that, it would require scaling back the scope of the year 4 of the audit. It is not possible, in my opinion, to do the Section 700 and 800 standards and audit and do a Park Avenue stationary plan. Since what I committed to at the Planning Commission hearing was to kind of engage some of the representatives from the CPO about what the scope of that Park Avenue stationary would plan, talk about what their intent was, what their goal was, what geographic area was being considered, and those sort of things. And I've had some very preliminary conversations with some representatives about that. Suffice to say, it's not scoped out perfectly. There's still some questions about that, and I expect you'll hear testimony about that today. The staff report that you have identifies a number of options that the board can pursue. They're listed, there's 3 there. You can consider all the projects that were recommended and adopt any of those or a combination of any of those. There isn't any sort of legal parameter here. Again, the sort of limitation is the staffing resources. And I want to emphasize, I am concerned about overall workloads in the department. The development activity we're seeing, it is increasing. People are beginning to knock on the doors. People are beginning to do more due diligence. Our applications are trending up slightly, et cetera. There, as you are also aware, there are some other ongoing things in the department that are they're going to require some staff resources and taking some time. The legislative session is kicking off in a month. I'm spending a fair amount of time fielding and responding to phone calls about the implementation of medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. That will be ongoing at least through the end of the year with OLCC making regulations, people sort of inquiring about what they can do and not do under those regulations. We've had several discussions in the last month or so with the board about the efforts to increase employment land in the county, the urban growth report, the urban growth boundary decision, the urban rural reserves remand, et cetera. So there's a lot of other things sort of ticking up. And the DTD and the Planning and Zoning Division is also involved in performance Clackamas, so we're spending a lot of time. So you know all that. I want to just sort of let you know I'm concerned about that, and so I'm very sort of cautious about what we commit to in the overall work program and scope of the projects. So with that, unless you have any other questions, I'm sure you'll have some testimony today on other issues.
And some questions from commissioners. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. Mr. McCallister, how many building permits did your department process last year with how many staff people doing it?
Oh, I couldn't answer that.
I think there was 16,000.
The number, it wasn't that many it was probably not, well, if you look at the total number of building permits, including homes,
Right.
additions, it could be that number, yes, but I don't know for certain off the top of my
And then
head.
how many staff people do we have, not including yourself, because I don't consider you.
The planning division includes 16 staff. There is an administrative assistant, 2 permit specialists, and 13 planners, and then myself.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bernard?
One of the things that in your 2015-2016 plan is the conflict between the standards of North Clackamas Park Recreation District and the master plan. I probably have a couple of questions regarding this issue. Is that one of the reasons the master plan is held up? Adoption of the master plan?
The Parks and Recreation District
Yeah.
master plan, no.
Okay, so the other is, one of the things about North Clackamas Parks is they have no money to do anything. It seems like this could be something we might want to delay for a future time because they have no money. And we spend a lot of time and money on all these planning exercises that there's no money to do anything. So this is one area that I'd like to see. The other thing is there is no, some of the other suggestions about looking at zoning in the Park Avenue area, there is no requirement by Metro to upzone that area, is there?
That's correct.
Okay, so when we talk about zoning, one of the things that people always fear is that because it's upzoned, I can't live there anymore. I have to, if I sell my house, the new owner has to, do whatever the current zone is. Is that true?
Can you state that question again?
Okay,
I'm
so, just if we were to rezone things, there's no requirement that when I get a permit to remodel or I sell my home that I need to upzone or, I need to meet that new standard, nor that the owner who buys that property has to meet that new zoning.
Correct. In the context of having in an existing lot, the rezoning of the property is not required to build a house, to do additions to the house, or anything like that. You would certainly be subject, if it was rezoned from, for example, 10,000 square foot to 8,500, you'd be subject to the standards in that new zoning district. But for the most part, those are really setback issues and lot coverage, and they're the same across the zoning district boundaries. So there's no effect in that regard. And if I can answer your questions on the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. So we continue to work closely with the Parks District on that. And really what that is a cleanup. And what's in the comprehensive plan right now that dates probably back into the 80s is a whole bunch of policies and design stands and park needs and all that stuff that are in the comprehensive plan. And they don't align with the Parks and Recreation District plan. And so all we're looking at is really getting rid of all those policies in the comp plan, and you might just have a policy that says, in regards to the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, we're recognizing the Parks Master Plan adopted by the, because we have conflicts right now between what's in the comp plan historically and what the Parks District's moving forward. So we're trying to align those.
Right. And that would not prevent the board from adopting whichever master plan they would like to adopt for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. It's simply to avoid a conflict between the ZDO
Right.
and the NCPRD.
It's cleanup.
And so just to kind of finish up, one of my big concerns is the marijuana issue, time, place, and manner. It's something that I would hate to see bumped, way out, and we would end up being behind. And, one of my biggest fears is McLaughlin turning into, marijuana row instead of used car row. And maybe it would be better, I don't know. But I mean, that's a great concern to me that, you know, I've been actually working on this for a number of years, and as you can see, things get bumped further and further out. And we have so many things occurring in the legislature that we may have to address that I'm concerned that we're really careful. And that's why I really think we ought to continue the conversation about Park Avenue and those communities, and not get into a lot of depth until we have the time and the money and the staff to do the job the right way. So, however, you know, with light rail opening the 14th of September, it is of great concern to me that we be ready to, you know, set that up as soon as possible.
Commissioner Savas?
So I do know we need to hear from the public, and I know there's cards, but, so I'm going to limit my questions right now, just a clarification. So on the vein that Commissioner Bernard was speaking to, so what you're leaning towards at this point is number 3, option 3? Just so I can get the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay. So my question to Mike, again, back to one of the issues that Commissioner Bernard raised, the current zoning that is in the Park Avenue station can complement what the plan basically is if it was implemented. I mean, if they wanted to do something that was consistent with the plan, the Park Avenue station plan, the zoning's currently acceptable to do that, right?
So the current zoning, you know, up and down McLaughlin is primarily commercial, and then just kind of on the outskirts is multifamily, and then it transitions to a single family. In the commercial zoning district today, you do have the option to do mixed-use development.
Okay, great.
It allows multifamily zoning uses today.
So
it doesn't require them, but it certainly allows them.
So on the option 3, continuing the conversation would not impede or stop someone from tomorrow or a developer tomorrow saying, you know what, I just bought this property, I wanted to build this mixed, you know, they can still do that today.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so there's no impediment there. I think, and then, so on number 3, would that be, in light of everything you said, Mike, would that include putting off section 700 and 800 till next year on option 3?
Yeah, so the option 3 is to, and just to clarify for the public, is sort of to have myself or other staff continue dialogue with the community out there and property owners about really what is the scope of doing a plan around there. What area, what do they want to accomplish? Do they want to have mixed use? Do they want to prohibit uses? Do they want to require mixed use? To kind of continue that conversation, remembering this work program doesn't become effective till July. And then at some point, and I've had some very preliminary conversations already and kind of hope provide them some direction. And then come back to the board sometime before and say, here's kind of some agreement or some consensus on property owners and what the Park Avenue station plan would look like, where it is, what we would try to accomplish, and put some parameters around that, around workloads. And, you know, they could be something from very simple. We could put a standard and say in this area you're required to do mixed use, and you're done, and you implement the other standard. To more complex, new design standards, street connections. But to answer your question is to continue that conversation, come back to the board and say, you know, here's kind of where we are today. And given the scope of that, then say what we would have to take off the plate to complete that work in the next year. I would anticipate something would have to come off the plate in the year 4 audit. And my recommendation to you would be to include the 800 sections of special use and bump the 700 sections to later in the year 4 or creeping into basically into year 5. That's not the advantage to that is that I mentioned is the audit is stretching our staffing resources now. The 800, but we're making good progress. We're still destined to be done in 5 years. Jennifer Hughes will make sure of that, or anyway. But the 800 standards, I won't say they're simplistic, but they're easier than a lot of it, because it's really just looking at a lot of the standards and are they appropriate. We may be deleting some of those standards because they're so old. The 700 standards are our overlay, our environmental overlays, our water quality environmental overlays. And those, if there's anything in the audit that is going to sort of garner the most public attention and be complex, technically, legally, et cetera, that is it. And so we have actually been working on those already, trying to do some buffer things that will meet statewide goals and those sort of things. So it's not a bad plan to kind of move those back if the board wants to do it, and it will give us additional time and resources to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you answered my question completely. So one other thing that I think you spoke to earlier in your opening statement or discussion or options was some of the discussion around what came from the Jenny's Lodge group primarily, which was shared at a group CPO meeting last night, a combined meeting. And that was, retention of the existing zoning, basically. That's a really basic comment. So I see some similarity about the dialogue really around density, or maybe focusing it here or there or not, and the neighborhood. So I won't, I'll let the dialogue continue, but under the option 3, really, could that dialogue also on that topic occur under that, being that they're so similar? Really, it's really
sure.
about zoning up or down or maintaining, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And talking about options or something that might happen under that, absolutely.
Commissioner Smith.
Mr. McCallister, can you briefly define for me the term upzoning as used in this work plan?
Yeah, it's basically where you're increasing density.
Okay. My question for you folks who out there listening in the audience, my compass revolves around, why would I limit anybody's private property rights to use their land as such stated? So if we want to prohibit zoning of a certain area, prohibit upzoning, I need a very good reason to limit any person's private property rights, whether they be commercial, industrial, residential, business, single family, mom and dad, and that's what I'll be listening for today. Thank you.
Commissioner Schrader.
Mr. McCallister, have we had included our economic development folks in any of these conversations at this point?
Not at this point. No.
Because part of the issue there in redevelopment is, in my mind, the potential for a livable community that's beautiful and easy to walk, but also job creation and the potential for that. So if we move forward, I'm inclined not to make a decision, actually saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and look at the Park Avenue plan and upzoning unless there's larger conversations happening too, because I get the sense from some emails I've received that there's angst that the broader community hasn't had those ideas vetted yet. And I know that's an area where we have a number of people with pretty firm opinions about how things should go. And you move ahead at your peril unless you make sure that everybody's feeling like they're on the same page, which is a challenge. And all my time here, it continues to be a challenge there. So I think 3 seems to be the better way to go. Part of my thinking as well is that you have embarked on this plan that is an audit and a cleanup of our ZDOs, which I think is extremely important and necessary. So kind of getting that majorly off track, from my perspective, isn't necessarily a good idea. So I'd like to see you move on, but I'm certainly not adverse to the continued conversations about upzoning and Park Avenue, but I don't think we've had a broad enough perspective, nor do I think that we've had maybe some cross integration with economic development to see what's possible in that area. So that's what I would like to see the community take a closer look at. Or it would be my suggestion. The community does what the community will do out there. So,
Commissioner Bernard.
I guess I guess my question really is around, you don't really give lengths of time, how much is required to do this or that or that. And I guess what we're talking about, I think, is that a conversation isn't a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting working with the community. It's more of spread it out and reach out to more people, and hopefully more people get involved. So that's the way I see it. And so it's next year before we get into the nitty-gritty of it. We've already reached out, and we can share in that workload. And our staff can share in that workload. So I don't see it impacting those other cleanups as much if we set the parameter that it's not like a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting. It's the start of a conversation. Is that how you kind of see it?
I think if, under option 3, I think it would be a dialogue with stakeholders in the community, in the next 3 or 4 months about what the goal is around the station area plan. And that would require some staffing resources, and I think that's okay. I think we can accommodate that. At the end, the question, I think the million-dollar question is, what wants to be accomplished? Is there some consensus around the community? Is there a consensus or at least some consideration of the property owners affected to move forward, all that? And then what's it look like? And at that point, then I can begin to answer a question of how long does it take to do that, and the staffing resources to do it. And I think it would have to be flushed out pretty good by the beginning of the budget year in order for us to undertake it, or you have a conversation about moving it to the following year, and depending on what happens.
And you almost answered what my question was. So
Okay.
in the budget process, and let's say we talk about that portion of it, that Park Avenue issue, we talk about it in work session or policy session about how much time we want you to put in that. And then you could say in the budget process, if you want me to do this, I need another $30,000, $60,000, or we can contract it out. That might be a discussion we'd want to have during, up until the budget process. So that's kind of what you're looking for, because this whole thing is about the budget. We could just say, well, we're not going to give you any of this money, and the heck with this stuff, we'll put it out 10 years. But in this case, we could talk about what is the need if we do this, additional requests you might have.
Right.
Okay.
And that's all, I think that's fair, and it's all, it's a conversation of if you begin to elevate some of these projects that require more staffing resources, how do you do that? Whether it's a consultant, I think those are all fair conversations.
Commissioner Savas?
Last comment, I think will be short, and that is, it'd probably be a good idea if we all got a copy, the 5 commissioners got a copy of the Park Avenue Station, that was funded by a TGM grant, and to look at the plan. So I see someone in the audience nodding. That was or was not a TGM grant?
It was TGM, yeah.
TGM grant. But it might be a good idea to review the document and just get an idea of what that was, and maybe review some of the public comments to kind of give you a flavor of some of the challenges. And I think they kind of relate to the other conversation with regard to zoning, retaining the zoning, or what those options are. So I think it'd be a good idea to review it. Not that it's necessarily the same thing, but I think it's just basic. It was a concept, not so much a plan.
Well, I believe that some of the commissioners' comments may change the comments of those who are about to testify. Let me ask you a couple of questions. I'll finish up here. Number 3, is well-written, but I want to point out to the public, this is on page 3 of 3 in the report by Mr. McCallister. First of all, I want to talk to you about how much time, and it's already been discussed to some degree, that you would take out of your important ZDO work in order to conduct this conversation until July. Would it cut deeply into that?
My involvement in the ZDO work is fairly limited. It's really being managed by Jennifer Hughes and the other staff. So I'm there kind of an advisory basis. So the answer to that question is it really wouldn't take us away from the ZDO audit. It wouldn't affect the ZDO audit in the context of what happens next 3 or 4 months. I think the nature of the conversations that I would have, I don't know how much time that would take, but I would anticipate, you know, and some of this I've already talked to community members about those folks going out and beginning to engage and have conversation amongst themselves with the affected property owners, and how can I help and assist and mediate or provide direction in that. So, you know, if I was going to throw an hour on it, an hour timeline on it, I'd say I'd probably have to spend 15 or 20 hours on it in the next several months. Is that something that I think I could absorb outside of the context of the audit and stuff? Yeah, I think I can do that.
When the Planning Commission held public hearing, did they adopt and recommend what staff is proposing here?
Under like the third option?
Well, let's call it number 1. I'm sure that they approved number 1, correct?
Right. So what the Plan Commission did is I think they said, yeah, we should move forward with audit. Mm-hmm. And they said, but because of the interest from the community out there the board to consider looking at a Park Avenue stationary plan, and really directed me to, between the Planning Commission meeting and this meeting, to try and sort of filter out what was being proposed, the scope of it, the geographic location of it, et cetera. And I've only done that to a small degree.
And that's how number 3 came about.
Yes. And they said if the board agrees that there should be a work on a Park Avenue stationary plan, that it would correspondingly require scaling back the audit. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and you know, we might note, tell me the number of pages thus far we've eliminated from the ZDO.
210, 221.
And that was the whole design of this, is to bring it back up to date, because there have been hundreds of changes over the years, and this is a 4-year plan. Yeah. Now, we all know that, I mean, if this was taken into consideration after this period of time till July by this board, it's going to slow down the ZDO review process and probably kick it into another year, correct?
Correct.
I might note something important in this, that's number 3, because it says, report back to the BCC before the end of the current fiscal year, July of 2015, on the progress of those conversations and interest of the affected property owners. I think that's very important here, because oftentimes it'll be an aggregate of property owners that come in and says, we want this to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's very impressive. So I don't know that anybody here is literally one of the affected ones in that particular park area that would be part of that plan. But it goes back to Tootie's comment about private property rights. Those people must be engaged and agreeable as far as I'm concerned. We're not going to force some new zoning down their throat, especially if it's upzoning, in my opinion. So yes, number 3 is under consideration. It sounds like thus far, before the public testimony, which may change our minds, that we're definitely leaning for that, towards that. I think that's the last of my particular questions. And now, finally, we're going to open it up for the public. So I have a bunch of cards here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to limit you to 3 minutes and try to be right on with that. I'm not going to bang the hammer on you or anything, but try to limit it to 3 minutes, please. Normally, we bleed over that a little bit, which is fine, but this is going to be a long one. I will call you up in 2s and then put 2 on deck. The first 2 are Jim Martin, Ed Riddle, followed by Chips. You scribble, man. And Joan Hamilton. So they're on deck.
My name is Jim Martin. I'm the chair of the Oak Grove Community Council. I live in Oak Grove. The Oak Grove Community Council fully supports the McLaughlin Area Plan and the programs and projects it contains. MAP Phase 2 details a wide range of issues, and I'm here today to support 2 short-term strategic priorities that are extremely time-sensitive for our community and reflect the MAP work. The first priority is develop a community design plan for McLaughlin Boulevard. The second priority is modify the existing zoning and design ordinance to better protect neighborhoods from upzoning and incompatible development. Regarding the first of these, Nathan Burton, a member of the Community Council and the chair of the Design Committee of MAPIT, that is the McLaughlin Area Plan and Implementation Team, has submitted a proposal for the inclusion of a Park Avenue Station area zoning overlay to the Planning Department's work plan for fiscal year 2015-16. The opening of TriMet's Orange Line light rail line is scheduled for September 2015, with one terminus located at the intersection of McLaughlin Boulevard and Park Avenue. At this time, no special zoning plan has been created for this major intersection. It is essential for the future economic vitality and integrity of our area that a station area zone be created through the collaborative efforts of the MAP community and the County Planning Department in the coming fiscal year. The Oak Grove Community Council is in full support of the creation of station area zoning based on the community criteria detailed in the MAP Phase 2 report. The OGCC strongly urges the Board of County Commissioners to recognize the critical timing involved and ensure that the creation of station area zoning be included in the Planning Department's fiscal year 2015-16 work plan. On the second of these two issues, modify the existing zoning and design ordinance to better protect neighborhoods from upzoning and incompatible development. The OGCC is in full support of the recommendations made during the December 18th BCC meeting proposing that the maintenance of R10 zoning be codified for designated zones in our unincorporated area. The OGCC looks forward to continuing to work with the Planning Department staff and area community members, including business, and in particular MABA, the McLaughlin Area Business Association, to ensure that the unincorporated areas between Milwaukee and Gladstone become economically robust, maintain their property values, and achieve the vision set forth by over 600 members of the community during the first phase of the McLaughlin Area Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Ed Riddle. I'm at 14207 Southeast Fair Oaks Avenue in Oak Grove. And Nate Burton, who's involved in MAPIT and member of the OGCC, the representative from the OGCC. He's also the chair of the MAPIT Design Committee. So he's a sort of focal person in this area. And he wrote a letter, and he asked me, because he had to work today, he asked me to read the letter. It's a little bit longer than the time is allotted, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase it a little bit and shorten it up a bit, if you don't mind.
Please.
And dear Board of County Commissioners, after several years of community involvement spurred by Orange Line construction adjacent to my newly constructed home, I joined MAPIT at its inception as a way to contribute my knowledge and creativity in the fields of architecture and planning in support of the community values and desires I saw emerging from MAP 1 and MAP 2, the McLaughlin Area Plan. To that end, the MAPIT Design Committee is focused on improvements to existing residential neighborhood codes to protect their character, as well as the creation of new zoning and design guidelines that will help spur the kind of focused and vibrant development around activity clusters that citizens envision through MAP. The first and most likely area to see significant new development in the near future is at Park Avenue due to the recent investments in infrastructure and the soon-to-come increase in activity surrounding it. Through years of patient process and building citizen involvement, basically, we are able to gather community support around our locally driven ideas to create a set of ordinance updates that not only support but also encourage the kinds of development that align with every aspect of MAP. While it's true that existing zoning allows a wide variety of uses, it's outdated and does not focus on new activity such that it creates a dense and walkable community in that station area. nor does it inspire creative developers to bring the kinds of new office and dense residential uses that would dramatically increase economic potential for both new and existing retail and businesses. We believe that a clear focus on the effort in the near term is essential to capture and maximize that economic potential for property owners and the desires of the greater community. We believe this is possible to achieve within the next few months by utilizing a significant portion of existing ordinances created recently for Fuller Road and the town center, combined with a few concepts borrowed from other jurisdictions and our own local knowledge. We aim to gather support for this approach and bring it to the planning department as a means of substantially reducing their required time and effort that might otherwise be necessary to create and tune new policy. Just one little more, a few seconds. For all these reasons, we request that planning staff be enabled to work with us through the coming year to implement zoning and design standards updates for Park Avenue as quickly as possible, allowing them to return their focus as quickly as possible to their ongoing ZDO audit practices.
Thank you. I might note that it's interesting in that letter that several times denser development, residential development is mentioned, yet we also hear about don't upzone. So it's a bit of a dichotomy for some of us to be listening to that.
Well, I
Jim?
think many of us, sorry.
Are you going to double answer?
The focus on the denser development would be along that corridor and
McLaughlin, yeah.
and not into the residential.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Next are Chips and Joan Hamilton, followed by Carol Mastronade and Karen Bjorklund. Either one of you can go first.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. As you know, the Orange Line will begin in Portland. Oh, excuse me, my name is Chips Janger, and I live in Oak Grove on Fair Oaks Avenue. As you know, the Orange Line will begin in September of next year. It begins in Portland, and it finishes in Clackamas County. We want to thank, by the way, in case you guys don't know, our station is going to be one of the most unique in the United States. It's totally going to sort of blow you guys away when you all see it. We're really looking forward to you coming to the opening of it. It's going to be absolutely extraordinary. There's nothing quite like it anywhere. There's going to be a lot of articles about it. It's also unique in another way. It's the only station that we know of in the United States of America that ends in an urban area that does not have a station area zoning. The only one. That always happens. People do this because every station brings economic development. That boulevard is going to change significantly. So normally the governing body make sure that there is a zoning area laying around the station to enhance the development of the area. Not only do they make sure that that happens, but they also make sure that their economic development department gets involved, because this is going to be a significant stimulation. That hasn't happened here. Nobody seems to have told the economic development department that this is a really important thing that they should do. And yet I hear other commissioners constantly and continually, thankfully I hear them constantly talking about what we can do to stimulate economic development in this county. And yet here we have one of the most significant factors, and we don't have stationary development. And I'm hearing right now people say, well, let's just kind of put it off. It's going to be open, and putting off a stationary development that all stations have everywhere around the United States is like closing the barn gate after the horses have gone, because they're going to be arriving here We're not talking about upzoning, we're talking about creating a stationary development to help stimulate economic development around this community, and yet nobody's doing it, and we're sort of cavalierly talking about it, well, we can do it later, maybe. Fortunately, the Planning Commission, none of whom live in our community, said, why is there no stationary development? And they instructed our zoning department to recommend to you guys to have one. This is what we want. We're not talking about upzoning. We're talking about creating a station area development. You guys have spent the public's money, $20 million in infrastructure right there. And if that money had been spent anywhere else, at Willamette Falls or something, this county would be watching it and being very involved in what is going on with it. And yet, we're not. And it is our light rail station. It's the one we have. Okay, guys? And that's it. By the way, one more thing. The community has been working very long and very hard, architects, designers, landscape architects already, in creating a model zoning area. So this is not going to take full staff time.
We've got to limit this. I mean,
It's not going to take full staff
I really want to
time.
be patient with everybody here, but, you know, let's be fair. We got a lot of cards here. I'd
I
really like to
understand.
limit your
I
testimony.
thought this was all important information for you guys to
Well, it
hear.
is, and we've got a lot of written stuff up here we've yet to read as well. All of it is important. Commissioner Savas.
Just briefly, I just want to make sure that people out there in the audience understand that my question earlier to the planning director, can these things happen now? Answer was yes. If there's a willing seller, willing buyer, willing developer, nothing's foreclosed on.
Nothing's foreclosed on.
Exactly. So
Totally.
I think we're okay.
Commissioner Schrader.
So I have before me a document dated January 24th, 2011, and it is from Brian Vanneman, the Leland Consulting Group, and it was a draft, 3.1 draft Economic Development and Redevelopment Memorandum with the Park Avenue Light Rail Station Plan. So I wasn't back in 2011. So this is on our county website. I found it down. So it looks as if there's already a.
Can I perhaps
Hold on.
answer that?
Hold on. Let's have Mr.
just-
McCallister answer this
Yeah,
question.
yeah. It looks as if there's already kind of a pathway, but my question is, it was accepted, but it wasn't adopted? Is that the deal with it? Because there was no agreement?
And commissioners,
Well-
here to help me. So the grant to do stationary plan along the entire length. Thank you. Along the entire length of McLaughlin Boulevard between Milwaukee and Gladstone. But there was an emphasis around the light rail station. I think it was a
Right.
half mile. The Planning Commission heard it, and this is where I could be wrong, but I believe the Planning Commission heard it. I think they forwarded a recommendation, and the board did not entertain it. The plan did not get adopted.
Okay.
And
I was on that
Commissioner
committee, if I
Savas,
could
and
help.
maybe you can, that's what I remember. It just didn't have enough support. There was some complexities to it. And the plan, I'm not even sure it got to a board hearing in
If I
terms of
can,
the length.
if I can.
Well, actually, I was there too, so I
I was
can
on the
answer.
committee.
Hold on.
Paul was there.
All right. You've got 10 seconds. Tell us of your involvement.
Well,
and understanding.
basically what happened is that this was a plan that was developed around before the urban renewal project, before the urban renewal vote was taken, and this was a plan that was based on an urban renewal concept of sort of changing that entire area. The community voted it down because they knew it was not relevant. The Planning Commission voted it down because they knew it was not relevant, and the commissioners who saw it said it's not relevant. So that plan was not relevant because it was based on an urban renewal concept, which was already put out. So we then took that and redid it to create something that would work using resources that are there that the community would accept. That's the history, and so I just wanted to let you know, Commissioner Schrader.
Commissioner Bernard.
Well, I was just going to add that the McLaughlin plan itself, which was bigger than this, was not. I went to the community meeting where it was voted down. I think it was a staged vote. Frankly, I thought that the community, the general community who had worked very hard on the plan, agreed to move forward, and then it came to us and you know, it never went any further. And I think it's time to, you know, do that. I think, frankly, I mean, with what we've talked about, I think, you know, policy session, talk about what would be the cost of doing this outside of your staff, and maybe increasing your staff. We ought to talk about doing this as soon as possible. That was my question about the budget process. When can we do this? But the other thing is, you know, that sometimes in this particular one, when we hired an outside consultant who said it was very similar to one area of town that nobody here likes, you know, it kind of just threw everybody off. I mean, the roads are going through everybody's, it was crazy. And it kind of threw everybody off when we were talking about that. So it never really got past that first meeting. It was pretty bad. But the McLaughlin area plan and the station plan, I think we ought to look at a budget. Can we fund something in that budget? It's just that Mike's telling us he can't do it. He can have the conversation, and I suppose he's going to do all the typing, but you know, he would require some staff support on that. But I think we ought to talk about how could we fund it and how much would that be in a policy session.
Commissioner Savas?
I just think that it would be, if this conversation leads to something that, and I'm reading from option 3 here, if you can bring the affected property owners and the community in agreement with something like this, it would go a long way. And I think that's really, that's the outreach. You have to have that. I think that's essential, and I think that'd be the next step. Sure, it changed whether or not it's funded by urban renewal, which is not likely to happen. But, you know, the fact that those things can still happen today under the existing zone, and you get someone who's willing to invest, our door's still open. Again, it's not foreclosed on.
Ms. Hamilton, welcome. It's your turn.
Thank you. My name is Joan Hamilton. I live on River Forest Lane. And I'm reading a letter that is written by Joseph Edge, who is a neighbor, and he was unable to attend and read this himself because he's at work. But in any case, he says, "Thank you for allowing me to provide this testimony to you today. I am 35 years old and identify myself as a millennial. I grew up in Oak Grove. I attended Oak Grove Elementary, Milwaukee Junior High, and Rex Putnam. I moved away for 15 years and have returned once again to make Oak Grove my home. I look to Oak Grove and Clackamas County as my future, and here's what my research has found for the future of this area. The two largest, this is very interesting to me, the two largest current population segments here are baby boomers and millennials. Adult millennials will surpass baby boomers as the largest population cohort this year, and the millennial population will continue growing for the next 20 years. As stated in the Columbus, Ohio Dispatch, attracting these two groups is a competition taking place across the country. Those areas that do it successfully will grow and prosper. Those that don't will lose not only residents, but also the businesses that cater to them and the taxes they pay. Pew Research data shows in 10 years, millennials will make up 75% of the workforce. Well-qualified, desirable workforce and their size and preferences will have a powerful effect on real estate markets. In fact, according to the Urban Land Institute, employers are seeking out locations that attract skilled millennials to work for them. The shortage of creative talent has made it important to locate offices where the talent they seek wants to live. As a result, suburban and central city locations near high-amenity activity centers will be preferred. As Dublin, Ohio-based developer Crawford Hoying says, it used to be companies located where the CEO wanted to live. Now it's where the employees want, and they want to walk to restaurants, bars, and shopping, and they want to live close to where they work. A vast array of research demonstrates that millennials choose to drive less than previous generations and consistently report greater attraction to urban living and walkable communities. And it's not just millennials. New research shows boomers, and I'm one of them, increasingly want to live where millennials do. The National Multifamily Housing Council says chronic underbuilding during recession has constrained apartment supplies at a time when demand is increasing for apartment living. Although ramping up again, supply remains well below historical averages and the level needed to meet the demand. Multi-use
Go ahead.
Two more sentences. Multi-use developments along McLaughlin Boulevard with proper zoning can bring the right mix of good jobs, new housing, new customers, and new businesses within walking distance of existing homes and the trolley trail. Increased property tax revenue and a breath of fresh air to an economically depressed section along McLaughlin Boulevard. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you for that. I don't think any of us disagree with this testimony. It's quite enlightening. We have discussed this particular issue, for instance, in our retirements coming at the county. How do we attract the millennials to come to work here with their skill set and da-da-da-da-da. So as we move forward on this plan, please keep in mind that this board has an overall vision of where we think we need to be in 3, 4, 5 years, and that was the development of our strategic plan. We call Performance Clackamas. And so I understand there's some hot spot problems here and there. So it's if we vote one way or another, it's not that we don't agree with you, but we have set goals for ourselves that we must follow. And in this plan, the adoption or not adoption will reflect those goals. Now, secondly, I want to say there's been some talking about adding additional staff. In this planning department, we have known that for years, that there would be a time that we'd have to add additional staff. However, it will grow government, and we have many proponents in the county, is to keep government smaller, more responsive to the needs of the people. Is this the area, I ask you, where we want to grow our government? So maybe somebody can grow government by adding additional staff.
No, Chips, you're done.
No.
Volunteer.
Chips, you're done.
We have laws we have to abide by. I'm not sure the volunteers can do that, but we can certainly take your input on this. So we have two competing factors at the same time here to get where we need to be. Just wanting to let you folks know that.
Mike will take a list after this of volunteer planners, right? Mike, you'd love that, right? All right, Carol Mastronade, Karen Bjorklund, followed by, I think it's Tom Weaver and Elizabeth Bentley.
Thank you for letting us speak today. My name's Carol Mastinar. I live on Meldrum Avenue in Jennings Lodge. The statements I'm going to make are not written down, but they pertain to what you have in front of you. The Clackamas County CPO handbook has numerous goals concerning the roles of citizens in the planning process. Listed are such items as the role in the land use planning process, excuse me, and advisory to the BPC and Planning Division for matters affecting areas within its boundaries. Zoning and traffic are listed as aspects of planning proposals in which CPO should be allowed to participate, along with a host of other factors which affect the livability of the CPO area. Probably most important to me personally, because it is ignored at the present time, is goal number 6. Quote, protect the character of the area by maintaining a vigilant posture to sustain a safe, healthful, and pleasant quality of life, unquote. Jennings Lodge residents would like to be allowed to do that vigilance in our area. At this time, we don't think that is happening. By you, the BCC, advising the hearings officer to say yes to development, it became even more difficult for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good morning. My name is Karen Bjorkland, and I'm also with the Jennings Lodge CPO Board. Thank you, Chair Ledlow, for saying my last name correctly. It doesn't happen very often. I'm here to talk about two subjects that are related to protecting existing neighborhoods. In December, people from Jennings Lodge came to the commissioners to ask for help preserving the current R10 zoning for a particular development in Jennings Lodge, and that led to a bigger discussion between commissioners and Mike McCallister about the idea of more broadly designating zones where R10 or other current zoning might be protected from increased density. Last night, as you heard, there was a meeting in Oak Grove where 3 area CPOs were invited. So that was Oak Grove, Jennings Lodge, and Clackamas CPOs. And at that meeting, a majority of the people present signed a petition in support of the concept of protecting and preserving the current zoning, R10 and other kinds of zoning in areas that could be designated between Milwaukee and Gladstone. So that's a pretty good indicator of support for that concept, and that petition hasn't even gone to Jennings Lodge yet, where there's probably going to be a lot more support for that, I'm guessing. As you kind of heard from Carol's comments, there's a lot of feeling in our area of helplessness and hopelessness in protecting existing neighborhoods as we go through the land use process. So the idea that we could preserve some of it would be a ray of sunshine for all of our communities. So we asked the Board of County Commissioners, the Planning Commission, and the planning staff to pursue a preservation of zoning as soon as possible. But there is something else that we also need desperately to try to preserve and protect our existing neighborhoods. We need to give the planning staff and the hearings officers tools in the ZDOs, in the zoning ordinances, to protect the values and the livability of existing neighborhoods. We need language that requires neighborhood character and livability to be considered in making land use decisions. And we also need the ZDOs to have the factors that make up neighborhood character and livability so that planning staff and hearings officers can use those. Since there are no ZDOs or no ZDO sections on protecting existing neighborhoods, there's, as Mike was talking about things coming up in planning audit, there's no real trigger points that would ordinarily bring up protecting neighborhoods as they move through the code audit. And it's too important to let it risk falling through the cracks. So we would like to ask that that language in the ZDOs for protecting existing neighborhoods be its own subject on the work plan. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I just want to state, just going to give my commissioners an opportunity to understand what Karen said when we talked about a majority of the group there. And I think there are about 80 people, plus or minus.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, about that. It was quite a showing. She asked me to come up and explain what was discussed here at the December meeting. And I asked the group a question. I said, please raise your hands if you want to see more density on the street that you live on. Very specific, on the street that you live on. And I think only 2 people out of the 80 raised their hands, and I asked them what street they lived on and so forth. But the point of the matter is, I think that there, you know, since my involvement in the community in '97, though I've lived there since '85, but getting involved in the CPOs and so forth, there's been this constant turmoil when a subdivision comes in and there's more and more traffic, or the character of the neighborhoods are challenged, which is really the theme of the last 2 speakers. It's really an issue, and it's gotten to the point now where the traffic in that area on the major streets there, McLaughlin and Oatfield and River Road, especially Oatfield, at a particular time of day, good luck on trying to get out of your driveway or across the street. So one of the things in my mind, just as the speakers are coming up and I mentioned that a little bit last night, but not completely, is that maybe it's time to talk about a traffic study in the area. And I think from a timing standpoint and related to one of the options of moving now or moving later, it seemed to be it would be far more fruitful to do it after the Orange Line opened, because then we'll see the impacts positive or negative, or based on a location. I think that we'll have a better idea and a more accurate result. But it ought to be, when we're doing this work plan and getting this input, I think that'd be something to consider doing at that time, because it's reaching to the point of it's at capacity. It's beyond capacity.
Commissioner Bernard.
Well, one problem with doing a traffic study is you don't know what you're going to do. I mean, one of the things we talked about in the development on Mount Scott was until you have an idea what the zoning is, until you've reached out to the community and talked about that zoning, what are you doing a traffic study for? You've got to have some idea what the, the density might be before you have something to measure, I guess. And so I think it's premature to do that. One of the things that's kind of funny about today is that when we talk about expansion of the UGB, we often forget what's already in the UGB, and that is McLaughlin Boulevard. You know, McLaughlin, the reason I'm worried about McLaughlin and marijuana is because it's a cruddy place, and people open those things where they think they can attract the people to buy the stuff. It's like used cars. You know, they put those there, and it used to be on 82nd. And so unless we do something to make McLaughlin a better place, it will attract things we don't want. And in Milwaukee, in Milwaukee, the downtown area gave up because the outside started to change and attract people. And now the communities are fighting to get those people back. And what we were told today is that the Millennium folk, they want that inside stuff, that stuff around main streets and light rail stations. The other thing that we always forget about light rail is, we'll say that Clackamas Town Center light rail didn't create development. Well, the economy went to hell. And if we take the time to, to see that economy turn around, there will be opportunities, and we have to be ready to take advantage of them when possible. And I think that's what we're being told today. If the light rail opens and we're not ready, people might put things in there we don't want. Like across the street, the old body shop could be the marijuana store. That will attract the entire region to McLaughlin Boulevard. I don't want to see that happen.
This will be the last commissioner I recognize, because I'm trying to get, less than 15 minutes spent on each speaker that only gets 3 here. Commissioner Savas.
Just briefly in response, but the basic concept, not a refined concept, but the basic concept is how much more traffic can this area take? It is the highest density area in the region, in Clackamas County, that is. And we have been getting infill and infill and infill. And a lot of reasons that, frankly, that those things have landed in Oak Grove is because it's easier to do in Oak Grove, and it's not so easy to do it in the city of Milwaukee or the city of Gladstone. So if we had the same stringent standards, perhaps, that Milwaukee did, maybe we wouldn't have that type of stuff. And the other thing is that, mind you, I'm looking very closely at North Main Village in Milwaukee, and I'm also looking at the Green Line Fuller Road area to see how that goes and see how many takers there are. Granted, the economy's coming back, but I'm looking real hard at it.
Well, so I'll get my 1 cent in here. It was mentioned that light rail brings a lot of good things. Well, it may not bring everything that's good. Ask Gresham. It was said when the Green Line came in that it would metamorphosize the area, that from 82nd to 205 would be a regentrification, great infill, redevelopment. None of that's happened. So I look forward to dealing with that particular area, and yes, I'd like it to look better and develop appropriately. And we took a tour of the place, and by the way, I don't understand huge steel structures stuck up in the air called art. Paint them green so they look like something's growing there, but those things, I have a great appreciation of art, but that's not art. So that's my opinion. Bernard and I were standing there looking at those things. Are there anything going to happen to these things? Anyway, thank you. Tom Weaver And Elizabeth Bentley, followed by Eleanor Hunter and Carol Powers.
I don't know, have none of these plans been implemented? This is 1999.
I was on that.
I know. What? Got so many of them.
Either one of you, let's get going. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow, fellow commissioners. My name is Tom Weaver. I live at 4815 Southeast Meldrum Avenue in Jennings Lodge. I'm going to ask here today that the BCC issue a directive to the Planning Department staff to institute an immediate moratorium on acceptance of any pre or formal application submitted by a developer that requires a change in zoning for any property located west of River Road between Milwaukee and Gladstone that is currently zoned R10, R10 being 10,000 square feet. Said moratorium would stay in effect until such time the BCC issues a ruling after the completion of a public hearing process that addresses the specific community-wide contentious issue whereby a designated zone R10 property west of River Road under current policies can be interpreted to be less than 10,000 square feet. I ask again now that the BCC preside over contested land use hearings in place of a hearings officer, most particularly when the land use applicant is requesting a change in current zoning. Under the current process, a request by an applicant for the rezoning of a certain property is heard by a hearings officer. At the same time, he or she considers the entire case, then issues a ruling on the application. There is no opportunity currently provided to have the request for a zone change to be heard separately from the formal application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCallister, you know I'm going to ask here. First of all, you know, it should be noted that this particular, let's call it the Evangelical Center, you know, if we, by the way, change the ordinance, or change our ordinance to say it is R10, it will be R10, nothing less than that, it would take a long process, public hearings, et cetera. And the moment we started to consider that, my bet is the applicant would apply, and that freezes the zoning as of that particular day, regardless of what we did subsequent to that. And second of all, a moratorium is regulated by, I believe, the state of Oregon, and it has longevity restraints as well as particular things that have to be done, correct?
There are provisions for moratoriums in statute. I haven't looked at them for 15 years. But I can tell you they're stringent and they have to be on some capacity issues or something like that where we aren't providing services. And it's a rigorous process.
That's a 2-year limitation, and you must work. I've gone through a few in Wilsonville.
I was going to say, I think the last one I recall in the county was in Wilsonville, so you're probably familiar with it.
Yeah. And it brings about great constraint on development and change, you know, of the character, which is, believe me, the whole R10 question is going to come up to this board. We're going to have a chat about it. But I just want to let you know the moratorium is probably not going to be in the cards because it's got to be about infrastructure. Okay, yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me be here. My name is Elizabeth Bentley, and I live in Jennings Lodge, and I'm also here representing the Oak Lodge History Detectives. Thank you for your time and your focus at the December 18 meeting, and Martha for staying up until 3 a.m. That was very much appreciated. We appreciated your interest at the meeting on the 18th, where we talked about maintaining neighborhood character around the proposed development of the Evangelical Retreat Center property. One aspect of neighborhood character that was not discussed during the meeting and is not currently being considered is the role of history in shaping a community. Hopefully, in the future, it will become an integral factor when decisions are made about how long a long-established community can best absorb new housing. For example, Jennings Lodge has all the earmarks of a historic neighborhood. 4 years of careful research by the Jennings Lodge Subcommittee of Oak Lodge History Detectives has revealed our significant ties to Oregon's early history. These have shaped our community's footprint and character considerably. Our research has also underscored the significant role of the ERC camp meeting and grounds in Jennings Lodge history. Jennings Lodge history is also intimately tied to the development of the first electric interurban railway in the United States, which arrived in Jennings Lodge in 1893. It was powered by water from Willamette Falls, and the interurban included a number of stops in Jennings Lodge. When the land became available in 1904, the Willamette Evangelical Camp Meeting Association bought the land in Jennings Lodge, which resulted in a melding together during the last century of settlers who had colonized our lands and the evangelicals who brought the camp meeting tradition to Jennings Lodge. Western Evangelical Seminary also began at the campground, and Bob Moore, founder of Bob's Red Mill, is perhaps one of its best-known students. Today, the community of Jennings Lodge reflects and cherishes its historic roots. The same is true in many communities throughout Clackamas County. As Clackamas County moves forward in developing new guidelines for land use development, consideration for a community's heritage should definitely be included as a significant factor in evaluating a neighborhood's character. We sincerely hope you will agree with us and will lead our county toward a greater respect for its distinguished heritage. And thank you.
Good history lesson. Thank you. Having grown up in Oak Grove, and then we moved there in '56, things have changed a great deal in Oak Grove and that entire, including McLaughlin. We used to just walk across, no big deal. Now, very scary, and including scary of what happened on River Road last night. One of the things I was with Neil McFarland, the director of TriMet, this morning at a meeting, and I said, closed platform soon, and there's a reason. But he said it was plumbed for it, we all know that, but there's no money for it. Does this sound familiar, right? But anyway, yeah, security is going to be concerned at that station. I love the history lesson, thank you. All right, we have Eleanor Hunter. We have Carol Powers, followed by Les Poole and Mac Woods.
Mr. Chair, when they're coming up, I appreciate the comments about the history and the heritage and considering preserving the neighborhood characters as we move forward with this. Just so you know, I bought a house that was built in 1900, and we turned it into a bed and breakfast, and I tried to establish a historic district in downtown City of Malala. I call it Old Town. And so I do appreciate that type of character. And what motivated me to do that is to keep that facility open so it wouldn't be plowed over and build a subdivision. And so I have some experience in this area. But, after a while, it becomes a matter of economics. And so if you really want your history preserved and your heritage preserved, you as people who are living in the community need to make sure, if it's turned into a business or whatever, that business and those things are successful. You just can't tell us, the politicians, you need to do this without you yourselves supporting the endeavor. Just want to let you know that.
Yes, either one of you can start.
Good morning, Chairman.
Would you pull that microphone closer to you? Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman. Better?
I still can't hear you.
Scoot up.
Just pull the
Okay.
whole microphone. Is that movable still?
Is that better?
I can't remember, yeah.
No?
Move that whole thing. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, fellow commissioners. My name is Carol Powers. I reside on Oakfield Road, Oak Grove area, and I am in 1/4 mile of the Park Avenue area station. I attended nearly every TriMet meeting possible to hear the impact that's going to happen in our area. Claudia Steinberg from TriMet clearly stated that rezoning may happen south of Park Avenue. She confirmed no rezoning would happen north of Park Avenue. And to stay where I'm at, I'm sitting on gold. I took this to heart, and I was able to finally sleep at night. And last night really threw me for a curve at the meeting that I attended. last night really threw me for a curve, especially after attending so many Oak Grove Community Council meetings and MAP-IT meetings, and not hearing anything regarding a half-mile zoning change around the station. I had even asked at one of the meetings if there were plans for the surrounding area regarding Oakfield and River Road, and was told no. What are we trying to do? Slip this through the back door? I thought I was an informed and aware citizen, and until I heard last night Eleanor, Nathan, and Chips at the meeting. What else is happening in this area that I'm not aware of?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. McCallister, we have no plans for changing the zoning around there, do we?
Aldercrest, I mean,
Yeah.
Oakfield.
Yeah. All right. Yes. Eleanor.
My name is Eleanor Hunter, and I live on Laurie Avenue in Oak Grove. I've presented the written testimony that I prepared, and I'm scrapping the whole thing to be able to respond to what's going on here. Thank you. Just a couple of things. One, and these might not be in order because I was making the notes during this meeting. The Planning Commission meeting in December, what I recall, Mike, is that they did support having Park Avenue put on the work plan for the next year, recognizing that the ZDOs that we've been dealing with have been around for 35 years, and that while the audit is important and necessary, they really saw the timing of the Park Avenue Station area zoning as being more important, and they supported having it put on. So that maybe that's my misunderstanding, but that's what I recall being at that meeting. The TGM grant that was spoken about earlier that was done, that was something that the community didn't agree with. The Board of County Commissioners did not accept. It was during, as Chips was saying, it was during the urban renewal thing. It was based not at all on any kind of community preferences through the McLaughlin area plan. So it really didn't have any bearing, and it was it was south of Park Avenue. So, but again, the TGM grant is not anything to do with the McLaughlin area plan. Those are two very different things. So the TGM grant was urban renewal based right around the Park Avenue station. The McLaughlin area plan is the entire length of the boulevard from Milwaukee down to Gladstone. Part of the McLaughlin area plan is the desire to have what's called activity nodes or clusters along the boulevard that'll be economic draws to help bolster the property values, the businesses, everything about the community. So those are trying to explain some of that stuff. Last night, at the meeting that we had for the ZDO audit, and we presented to the community desires for the R10 zoning in the residential areas, again, in specific designated areas, not just everywhere. And again, it's for how then to also do things around Park Avenue Station in specific designated areas. So when we talk about, say, a quarter mile or half mile, it doesn't mean everything in that area is going to change. It means there's going to be within there specific things that can happen to help bolster the property values. We're trying to work within our organization, within our community, to get our act together, and then of course we're going to go to the property owners. We wouldn't think of it. It's their ownership of their land. Not going to happen. What we're doing is we're trying to get our own internal act together and then be able to go out over these next 6 months to work with people and build those collaborations that we have been doing for years. And then we've got more of a concerted thing to bring to you and make that happen together. So that's the desire. We're looking for balance. We're looking for balance. I'll shut up.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and, sorry,
Yes.
50 individually signed cards of people at the meeting last night who support having Park Avenue zoning put on the work plan for the next year. This is the first time we brought it out to the community, and we got 50 cards signed.
It's kind of small, I can't see it.
Yeah, the cards are huge. And so,
Any questions or nothing?
no, I don't think so, unless I missed something there. Okay, so it is Les Poole and Mac Woods, followed by Elma Hagen-Miller, Peter Ollington, I think. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Les Poole, a longtime resident of the Oak Grove neighborhood. I did move to Gladstone, but I think I'm close enough to comment on that aspect. And then a couple other comments about the subject in general. One is, even though things are dragging on, they're really not dragging on. We're actually having a dialogue here. I keep pointing this out because regardless of anyone's opinion, we're having more transparency. We're having more people come up and give feedback. And I know we got a lot more people to talk, so I'll move on. Park Avenue. I certainly would support something in the future, but given what's on Mr. McCallister's plate already, given that the design build, I hate to say it, winging aspect of how that's come together, judging by what's happened with the Elks and with some of the access, and with the fact that it was always a problematic location. And yes, we can go back 6, 8, 10 years if need be, but the truth is, Park Avenue was never properly vetted as a good location for a terminus. So unlike anywhere else, we've got a bunch of dead-end roads. We're jammed up against the trail. We've got a very narrow corridor there. So there's just a lot of things about Park Avenue that say that aspect needs to be moved down the road until the dust settles. Let's take that off the table and let's put it on the agenda a year from now. I would certainly support it at that time. And the light rail is going to open at the end of 2015, and there isn't, you know, they'll have free rides for a month, but the truth is, it's a long ways out. The last couple things I'd like to say is that Mr. McCallister mentioned the remand and employment lands, and somewhere in all of this, industrial lands, jobs that are going to sustain us, jobs that are going to provide a living wage without having to create one out of thin air. That's what we need. And with economic vitality in the region and in the county, the people moving into Oak Grove, whoever they are, will be able to afford a higher level of services. McLaughlin Boulevard is a state highway. We're stuck with that. It's a mess. We need to do something. But I'll refer and close with Mr. Bernard's comments. In looking at this, where's the money coming from? Chips was right about something he said about the urban renewal measure nipping that $25 million that was going to pay for Park Avenue. So if something's going to happen, where's the money going to come from? So thank you very much.
Mr. Woods.
Chair Ludlow and Commissioners, I am MacArthur Woods. I live on Maxburg Road in beautiful downtown Maxburg, which is no longer a city. There's reasons for that, but I'm going to try and condense out of respect to get under 3 minutes for the public here today. We have a real mess. As I have listened with both ears, now I'm talking with one mouth, we got a mess. And there's one reason for it. Oregon is the only state in the United States that has a LCDC, Land Conservation Development Corps, and it's a mess. I think the public is fed up with it. We're probably paying taxes. That's why I went to the tax assessor's office just yesterday. There was a veteran there, elderly veteran, that on his income, old age pension I call it, Social Security, they're selling his house because he can't pay his cotton picking taxes. That's bad. For one reason, and Chair Ludlow, I don't know if you've been a principal broker as long as I have, but a long time, and we know anything we do in real estate, whether it's commercial house, we have to go to the Cotton Picking Planning Board, and none of them are consistent with the other from one county to the next. That's why I say it's a mess. It's time to bring this mess to a halt. Get rid of these high taxes. How are we going to do it? Common sense just ain't too common anymore. Stupid is what stupid does, according to Gump. So, out of respect, it's difficult for me to talk without insulting somebody's integrity. But there's time for change in Oregon, and it needs to happen now. The public can do something about it, possibly vote out LCDC. Thank you.
Mac, I'm not sure how that related to the ZDO, but we'll make it fit in there somewhere.
You've got to go by it. That's in the cotton picking rules. You know that, Chair Ludlow. You're a principal broker.
I am.
Even the people we're over, the brokers, to keep them straight, we got to go to the Cotton Picking County Planning Board to find out what the use is, and that absolutely ties in with this, 100% only. Thank you.
I think it's been a while since Mike's been called a cotton picker, but I think he can live with
I'm
that.
from the South. I joined the Navy in 1960. After 20 years, I got out and lived here in Oregon since. And I'm dealing with a
Thank you,
cotton
Mac.
picking planning board ever
The
since.
cotton pickers, that's right.
Thank
Thelman Hagenmiller and Peter, I think it's, you can correct me, Olington? Is it? Thank you. Either one of you.
Well, it's already been stated at the start of the meeting that I did send you my testimony, and I'm just going to read the part that I told you I was going to read, and that's for the public record and the TV. Good morning, Chair Ludlow and fellow commissioners. My name is Thelma Hagenmiller. I have resided in the community of Oak Grove for over 45 years. I am before you today to address the 2015-2016 work plan, which will be submitted for your budget approval by the County Planning Department Director. I attended the joint CPO meeting held in the Oak Grove area last evening, where one of the planning staff gave a very thorough presentation on what issues were scheduled to be addressed in the coming year's work plan, or the ZDO audit, as it's called. I am also aware that today you have been now presented with cards, or the essence of cards, that people signed last evening specifically asking for the Park Avenue Station area to be added to that work plan. I spoke up last night and am speaking up again today to ask that this addition to the work plan and its related budget impact not be made at this time. The people making this request have their cart in front of their horse. The replacement plan they are proposing be added and looked at has not yet been through a complete public process. When a member of last night's audience asked when a replacement plan would be available for public input, there was no definitive answer. I am not before you today to express an opinion in favor or against the replacement plan being developed for the area. I am simply here to ask you to send these people back to the proverbial drawing board to develop a plan that the entire community has input and buy into. And I have a couple seconds left. I'm going to say, Chair Ludlow, with your indulgence, I would like to publicly issue my appreciation for the lovely painted egg I was given last evening from some of the members of the Oak Grove community that are here even today.
Oh,
Thank you.
nice. Very nice.
Looks nice.
I'll show it to you all after the meeting.
And I'm sure that's hand-painted as well.
It is hand-painted.
It has to be. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. When you mentioned that we hold off on the addition to the plan, I think you're right in your reasons why you state that. And as we were given these yellow cards, the first thought that came to mind is something that I said earlier in this meeting. How many hundreds and thousands of dollars do we want to spend on this? And is this where you want to grow your local government? So you just can't say that, oh, we want this, and expect it's not going to have a financial implication on that. And is it keeping with Performance Clackamas, our strategic plan and goals that this commission has set? Questions I'm asking. I would like to know.
I thought this was orange.
Oh, Jim thought it was orange.
When you held it up, it looks yellow.
Is it? Oh.
That's what scared me.
Sir, you have the distinction of being the last person to speak on this matter today.
Very nice. Thanks.
Wait, I don't
Good
have a
morning,
card.
Chair Ludlow.
Hold on, I
And
just got to check on some. Oh, do I have a card?
You do have one.
I don't know how I got through that. Yes, Pat, we'll get to you. Yes, sir. You're not the last person, as it turns out. Sorry.
Good morning. My name is Peter Ovington. This is my first time at a Board of Commissioners meeting, so I'm glad to be here. I was watching at home on video and just felt compelled to come down. I live on Silver Springs Road, just east of Oatfield. Bought a home there a year ago. And one thing I was really struck by moving into the community last year was how beautiful our residential streets are and how much work could be done to our commercial streets. McLaughlin Boulevard has a lot of potential, I think, but there's a mismatch there, and I think my neighbors and I kind of wonder why that is. I was at a party recently that our realtor hosted with some new homeowners in Oak Grove, and a lot of younger homeowners, folks looking to move to the area, many of them interested in the arrival of the Max Orange Line. And I've also gone to a couple Oak Grove Community Council meetings now, and I've just noticed another disconnect, which is that many of these young homeowners and families and also renters in the community don't attend that meeting. And I think it's unfortunate because it's not as representative of the community as it could be, and I hope that will change. I was at the meeting last night, as I mentioned, and Commissioner Savis, I appreciated his comments. I was the contrarian in the audience who, when he asked, how many of you homeowners on residential side streets would like your street upzoned or have the density increased? I was probably the only one or maybe one of two to raise my hand, and I was really being contrarian. I live in a ranch home, 7,000 square foot lot. I don't need to see mixed use development on my street, but what I would like to see is a plan for a station area at Park Avenue for a Max line that is opening in about 8 months. I currently ride the number 33 McLaughlin bus. It helps keep my family's living costs down. We can share one car that way. And I'm looking forward to the Max coming. But with no plan in sight and construction basically almost finished, I'm concerned that it's not in the planning department's work plan to have something on paper and to have a process to get the community's buy-in to make that station hub as beautiful as it can be and to bring some economic development. You know, I'm walking into this after a lot of the work has already been done. All the work to get the trees planted, the design of the station, the park and ride structure, it's really impressive and I think it's beautiful, and it's starting to provide an opportunity for McLaughlin Boulevard to be something more attractive that more people want to actually go to, spend their dollars at local businesses. You know, I'll be frank, I live at the north edge of your county. Sometimes I go up to Selwood because I want to go to a place with some good food and coffee options, and that's not within walking distance of me right now. So I'd rather spend my dollars locally, and I hope a station area plan can help to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm most gratified to hear that somebody's actually watching us out there, so that's, thank
On my
you.
phone.
And responsive to that. By golly, I'm coming down there and tell them something, right? Okay, well done, both of you, thank you. And that is the end.
Oh, Pat Russell.
Oh, I tried that twice, didn't I, Pat? Okay, Pat Russell, you have the distinction of being the last person to speak today. What a man to bat cleanup.
Is that the letter you sent yesterday?
Correct.
Okay, because I already distributed the January 21st. I distributed that to the board prior, so.
Yeah, the pile's getting big.
It is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Pat Russell, and I reside at 15989 Southeast Bilquist Circle in unincorporated Milwaukee, which includes homes out to I-205, not just Milwaukee. And I'm a few doors south of Bilquist Elementary. Just to get your attention, I've been thinking about, on my 10,000 square foot lot on Webster Road, I thought it would be a great idea to start a hog ranch.
Good idea.
I mean, we already have donkeys in our neighborhood. We've got chickens, so I thought maybe a few hogs because I can't afford steak anymore in my barbecue. So I think my neighbors would love a hog farm in my property, and they can have their R10 zone all they want, but I want my hog farm. Going on with my comment letter that I submitted this via email at 9:30 this morning, so you may not have seen my cover letter, but attached to the cover letter is a listing of items of concern over the last 15 years in my CPO, and I've been on the CPO as an active participant over 15 years now. And what Mike referred to is a relatively new listing of concerns, which I developed from the December 18th discussion with the board. So going on here, last December 18th, I testified before the board sharing general concerns I have heard from our urban community in North Clackamas County regarding development processes and planning. Last night, our 3 CPOs between the Willamette River and I-205, not just between Milwaukee and Gladstone, out to I-205, organized a community discussion attended by 60 folks about what we feel our community planners should do over the next few years. We are very supportive of Commissioner Savas's initiative to protect our R10 zone neighborhoods from upzoning. I think I heard from the board during the December 18th discussion that the idea has merit. This was only one concern among others expressed regarding planning in our community. The hearings officer review process is not working, nor is the community being involved early enough in development review, pre-application review conferences that you might be aware of. Some of the development policies also do not work in our neighborhoods. I have tried to create a working list of issues that my CPO committee has felt over the last 15 years needs changing. That list is attached for your consideration. I know that a planning work program can't deal with all of them in a year or two, but we need to start somewhere besides just doing housekeeping amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick note on the hearings officer. We have to have a hearings officer to do this work. And as far as the pre-application conferences, which I have been involved in more than several, that is the time that they review law and rule, not personal preference. And I think that is a place that has to be private with the staff. For anybody to come in and talk about what their dreams are for a particular property, keeping in mind that a lot of times these people come into a pre-app and they simply have an option to purchase a property. They don't always own it. They have an option to purchase it. And that confidentiality is key to that. So definitely on the pre-apps, we've got to have that tight and private, again, law and rule, not personal preference as to what should happen on a piece of property.
I respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Chair. Quickly on the hearings officer, it's interesting that the city of Portland, a big city, a lot of things to do, they hear their own appeals. And many cities do as well.
Well, this commission has been fairly resolute about, no, we don't want to.
And you're a full-time commission. You're being paid over $100,000 a year to sit up here and conduct business.
We're not being paid that amount, but I appreciate you chastising us for that. Commissioner Bernard.
So I would like to, we have some other business. We're doing the homeless count. So I'd like to just attempt a motion and see if there's a second. And so I move to adopt the planning staff's 2015 to 2016 work plan and direct staff to come back in the next month and provide a proposal for adding the station area planning to their 2015-2016 work plan.
Did you say Park Avenue Station?
Station area planning, yes.
What
So
does
that would-
stationary mean?
Well, that'd be around the Park Avenue station.
Okay, I'll second that.
And I just would like to see what it would cost and what are some alternative ways of getting that done, whether that's contracting out or finding other departments that could facilitate that.
I'll second that for the purposes of discussion. Not sure I'm going to vote for it.
I had thought that, we have a written motion here. They give us a script that's reasonable and probably very appropriate. I thought that this would happen in addition to the number 3 on the staff report, which doesn't sound like it's as fast as you want, in as much as it's conversations that Mike has told you about his expenditure of time for that, which would lead us up to the end of the fiscal year.
Well, first off, the conversation would have to take place with the community. Maybe it's 2 months from now. that you come back with a proposal after you reach out to the community and get some feel for what they would like to see occur in this planning. And then at that point, you could, reach out and get some idea what it might cost outside of your time and your staff time to move into this discussion deeper. And that's all and so it is a conversation with perhaps a proposal for a budget addition or a subcontract to study the plan, a plan.
Okay, Commissioner Savas.
So on option 3, I think in a way that is what the last sentence says.
Yeah.
At that time, the BCC could consider and reconsider and make changes to the work program. So you're going to bring back a work program based on, after we make the selection 3, right?
Correct.
If we chose selection 3.
That's correct.
So in a sense, there's an opportunity to do that, but I think in reality, it's a resource issue, not just money, but staff. And I think the bigger issue for me, those are two big issues for me, but the third issue is really and I think one of the speakers said it, maybe it was Thelma, a plan that people, and roll out of a plan or a concept. I think that the public involvement piece of this and getting everyone together can't happen in the time frame to it, and for them to honestly be able to bring back property owners, as it's stated in there, that would support it. I mean, it takes a lot of time to do that. And I think starting this process now, as far as the dialogue and the discussion, wouldn't preclude that from happening. If it can happen faster, that's great. I mean, maybe we could incorporate it if they can make far faster progress. But I think the public involvement input part of this is got to be first and foremost considered. So I can't support the motion, but I can support number 3. And if we can get there and they can incorporate that as something they bring back in the work plan as something to consider, we can do it that way. But I think the public involvement piece has to be met.
Well,
go ahead.
I don't think I'm suggesting anything. I'm suggesting a slight addition to number 3. You still have the conversation, you still do the outreach, but when we get to time to do the budget, a proposal to move forward in that analysis. That's all I'm proposing. I frankly don't want to change the work plan. I think the ZDO stuff's really important.
Darn straight.
And, we started this 4 years ago or 3 years ago because we thought it was. And I don't want to lose that. But if there's an opportunity in the budget process to throw a little more investment at that planning, I think we ought to have some idea what it might cost or what it might entail. So I'm okay with number 3. I just am adding a little bit, asking staff, we could do this outside of this motion, frankly, to just ask staff to bring us forward some information, what it might cost to do that planning.
I think that like Paul said, it's really incorporated in number 3. Commissioner Smith.
I think at time sensitive here. We're looking at budget being proposed right now, and we'll have our budget committee meetings in May, and it's right upon us. And I've asked the question, is this where the BCC and the people want their government to grow? And I'm very, very sensitive to that because I see pressures being put on us from other areas. And frankly, the people here today, I appreciate it, but you can count on 2 fingers how many people are here to increase our budget quite a lot. And somebody said it's not money, it's staff. Excuse me. Those 2 things are so tied together. The level of expertise, education, and knowledge it takes to do this type of planning work is expensive. And Mike, for you to say that you can add another 10 to 15 hours in your schedule over the next couple months, I don't know how you're going to do that. You must not be taking any weekends off or any vacation because of the other workloads that we have put on you regarding our strategic plan. I keep harping on this strategic plan because, folks, you need to go and read it and absorb it and understand where we're going with this. And I think if you did that, there wouldn't be so much angst about adopting these ZDOs. And if you have questions, you know, contact me. Send me an email, I'll call you, we'll talk through it and try to get some understanding on it. I understand why Jim put 2 months in that, and that's why I seconded the motion. Can it be brought to us before our budget time? I'm not inclined to add staff for this particular project. I'm going to say that right now, because I have committed my thoughts and my votes to other areas where I think the budget is going to be increased. So that's what I'm going from.
Commissioner Savis.
So I probably should say this. I was reserving some comments for after the testimony, so, and that's why, unfortunately, the motion's kind of premature. But what I wanted a dialogue about was, there's two issues out there we heard from today. Number one, station area plan, and then number two is really, I think, preservation of the density. You know, frankly, I live in the neighborhood, the community. Some of you know it very well. It's bursting at the seams with people and cars and transportation issues. I think it really is going to be an intense dialogue. I don't want to. I'm not saying the two are connected, but I don't want to just study the Park Avenue station without really having the density conversation and the livability issue. I think those are. I see them somewhat tied together. I think it really is a discussion. Granted, one might be in one little sliver of that, but what I think I heard last night and I hear constantly, overwhelming support and concern for considering something about locking the zoning or freezing the zoning or retaining the zoning, but it's how many more people can we squeeze in there?
Commissioner Bernard?
I don't think anybody up here wants to go and rezone this and become Portland.
No.
Nobody up here is even considering that. The only interest I have, frankly, is McLaughlin Boulevard. That area back how many feet, and it varies throughout McLaughlin. It's the only thing I care about. I'm not interested in going to the neighborhoods and zoning and rezoning. But, you know, when a big piece of property comes and there is an opportunity, I think we ought to listen to it. But I don't see that occurring off Oakfield or off River Road except for one piece. So, I mean, I think fearing that Portland density, which I do not support in Clackamas County, is going to occur. It isn't. So, you know, I'd be more than happy to amend my motion to be similar to 3. I'm just would ask the commission support the planning director bringing forward some information to study what it might cost or involve in planning Park Avenue Station.
Okay, well, you're limited to just that, and that's my concern.
Well, I mean, we could study population growth and unemployment and everything else. I just think we need to limit that. I mean, that's what I think is important.
Commissioners?
I'll make if this motion fails, I'll make a different motion that might complement both our concerns.
Well, you know, number 3 is fairly vague in a sense, in that there is no time constraints. It simply says by July 1st, this would occur. It's already been stated by several commissioners they're concerned about the budget and how much this would cost and if we can afford it. And I believe that the staff has that message that they can deliver to us prior to the budget considerations as to approximately how much this will add to their work docket. So, you know, in essence, number 3 does encapsulate it, and I think we've sent the message.
I should restate it then, maybe.
Well, if you could withdraw the motion, to withdraw and restate it.
You withdraw,
I'll withdraw.
I'll state it.
Well, now you guys don't fight over it. There's plenty of room for everybody.
A second.
The second will withdraw. Jim needs to restate his motion.
He has the floor.
So I move we adopt the planning staff's recommended.
Can I just go through some? We have a script here. I'm sorry. If you read it, I move we approve, not adopt, and there is a difference. So,
well, okay. I move we approve the Clackamas County's planning and zoning 2015-2016 work plan with the addition of that one sentence. on page,
Oh, you mean the paragraph number 3?
Say,
yeah, which says, and report, paragraph 3, report back to the BCC before the end of the current fiscal year on the progress of conversations involving
Good.
Park Avenue Station.
When there's a motion, we have to ask for the second before we have conversation. Is there a second?
second.
That motion's been seconded. Commissioner Savas.
Okay, so I think the way you worded it, Jim, though, reflects option 1, not option 3.
He said incorporate the paragraph, number
He said-
3.
He said incorporate paragraph number 3.
That's number 3, all of it.
That's why I wanted you to do that.
Well, if you look at number 1 and read what number 1 is in entirety, which refers to projects 1 through 5, and maybe I need to study this a little bit deeper because I'm taking all those into consideration, where it starts out saying Clackamas County Planning Commission recommendation, it really incorporates that, which is a huge scope of work. So if we go back to number 3, seems to me.
Number 3 says, adopt the planning staff recommendation identified in paragraph number 1. So that encapsulates number 1. And in addition, adds that conversation that will occur, and as I said, staff already knows we're going to talk about budgetary constraints, what this thing would cost, et cetera. So number 3 encapsulates number 1. Is that right, Mr. McCallister?
Number 1 says basically you have to kick some of these other things to the future
Well,
so you can do this. And that's why number 3 says do this, but continue the conversation.
Okay, I'm sorry, I mixed up my, you're correct. I mixed up my paragraphs because I didn't read down there. So, but my issue still remains is we're not talking about the second issue.
We
that's
can
been out
talk
here.
about that outside of this.
which is the second one, Paul?
The density.
The second issue that's not even listed.
Oh,
which
the
is-
density.
I will promise, because I scheduled the agenda, that we will have a policy session on the question of upzoning or not in the particular areas that have been requested tonight. So I'll just tell you that that's going to happen. Yes.
Well, if it included also retaining. So the question is upzoning or retaining. And it may be,
I
you could
think
say
that's
that they're
what I
one and
meant.
the same thing.
Either
To me,
it's
more,
art, yeah.
to me, Chair, if I may, to me, it's more of a dialogue of knowing really what all the options are and what things can or could not happen if you retained it. What does that look like as far as some of the options as far as subdivisions and PUDs and so forth? I think that's the kind of language and discussion that needs to occur because really the key issue is how many more housing, transportation, how many more people can the area absorb?
I think every time we have a policy session, it is wide-ranging, especially because of the questions by this very diverse commission. I think it's healthy. I think we come out with good decisions, and I think Mr. McCallister gets our drift. Do you not?
I do.
Good.
So Mike, can you explain to me, as you understand the motion, what the motion would be again, as you understand it?
That we would, the board would adopt the work program for phase 4 of the audit. And then between now and July, I would have a conversation, initiate some conversations with property owners and stakeholders on regards to the Park Avenue Station Area Plan, and report back to the board the progress of those and some options of whether I think that's feasible or not feasible in terms of a budget or whether it would require consultants. And then based on the scope of that, if it is something that appears there's some consensus and property owner buy-off, then you would have a conversation about what comes off the audit in year 4.
And my concern, as his interpretation, it does not cover that density issue. And at a later date, I think it's incorporated in the work plan.
Well, it may or may not be, but Paul, we're going to be having, I promised, it's on tape. We're going to have a work session on the whole question of R10 zoning. And should it be a 10,000 square foot minimum lot in an R10 zone? You can call it up zoning, you can call it down zoning. Should we freeze it the way it is or not? With that will come a great deal of other discussion about infill, properties that are larger that may have consideration for, for zoning changes, especially as it approaches McLaughlin Boulevard. But don't forget, folks, Metro just came out with their report. What did they say? They say there's going to be a complete turnaround in Oregon. That all of a sudden, even though we have 2/3 and more people living in single-family homes, that there's going to be a complete change. In the next 20 years, 2/3 of the people will want to live in apartments Now, where is that? I ran during a time we were saying it was Portland creep. And it is. It's metro creep in a lot of ways. Where are we going to put all these people that want to be in multifamily? I am a single-family guy. As a real estate broker, I believe in single-family housing. I know people want single-family housing, and I know they want reasonable-sized lots in which to raise their family or plant their garden, for goodness sakes. That is becoming less and less prevalent out there, and it's a constant fight. And if Metro has their way, they'll build 10,000 apartments per year for the next 20 years in Portland with no parking. So, and they can have that, by the way, but it's going to affect all of us, even though it's in Portland. And I believe in the sanctity of this area. I grew up there. We used to have lots of bare lots with dirt clods, and we had a lot of fun with that stuff, and built bike trails and everything else. And Oak Grove's completely changed. But that character must be preserved, and we intend to do that. But the R10 zone will be on our work schedule, and we will address that, and I'm sure you'll all have plenty of notice. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the upzoning piece, I think it's a work session issue. I don't think it's anything that this commission wants to ignore or not address at this point. And I also think it does seem to be reflective of the fact that although there's a push for density, we have constituencies who believe that that kind of density is not conducive to their quality of life. That's become loud and clear. It's going to be a balance, and Commissioner Savas, I'll be comfortable with this motion with the knowledge that we're talking about a longer-term work session. I think these issues are all interconnected, but right now I think the first things first is getting through with this motion, understanding that we are going to have a change at Park Place, and that conversation seems timely to have happen, and then we can have our work session address the upzoning issue. I think that's a good, is everybody happy? Or not? That's a sign.
Don't let them raise their hands.
Don't raise your hands. But I think we're just trying to get to a balance here and be thoughtful. So.
All right. Are we finished with the discussion? And Caroline, you have a motion that you understand now perfectly. And are you ready for the poll? Caroline.
Okay. Commissioner Savas?
No.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? Aye. Commissioner Schrader? Aye. Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 4-1. I want to thank everybody who's taken their precious time here today to come talk to us and advise us. You do make a difference, and we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Now, we are all the way down to the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Under the Department of Transportation and Development.
Hold on, Caroline. If you could take the back door, too, so that one makes a lot of noise when trying to finish the meeting up. Thank you. Sorry, Caroline.
Under the Department of Transportation and Development, board order to acknowledge Southeast Sunnybrook Boulevard as a county road number 3418. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. Under administration, approval and adoption of affirmative action hiring goals. Under the Department of Employee Services, approval of an amendment to the Clackamas County Healthcare Flexible Spending Account Plan document. Approval of agreements with Providence Health Plan and Unified Life Insurance Company for administrative services for Clackamas County's self-funded medical benefits. Approval of the labor contract between Clackamas County and the Clackamas County Peace Officers Association. Under the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of an Oregon Parks and Recreation Department Recreational Trails Program Agreement, RT 14-021, Sunnyside Village Trail. And that concludes the consent agenda.
All right. Anybody want to pull any of those items that she has read into the record?
No, Mr. Chair, I move we pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Further discussion? Caroline?
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 5-0. And we don't have Mr. Excitement here today, Mr. Krupp, to give us our county administrator updates. So Nancy Newton, you're up.
I will try to be as exciting as possible. A few things. Comment from a citizen, and I wanted to relay this regarding some road maintenance on New Era Road. It said, recently county staff did maintenance work, including cutting back brush and repairing shoulders on New Era Road. I am writing to say thank you. You made the property around Warner Grange safer and more appealing. Your work is greatly appreciated. Also, your friendliness and efficiency is appreciated too. And this is a member of our steward, Warner Grange. Another issue, the Women's Empowerment Project, which is sponsored by Community Corrections, is offering a free 14-week class for women impacted by domestic violence. Detailed information can be found on the county website. Last night, Clackamas County youth graduated from our drug court program. This is administered by the Juveniles Drug Court team. It's an intensive 8-month program that provides high level of accountability, supervision, and treatment, include group substance abuse treatment, individual and family counseling. You can learn more about this on the county webpage as well. And finally, we had a couple of commissioners leave. They're going to the homeless count. As someone, I participated in this in the past several years. I'm going tonight to the Father's Heart Warming Shelter. This is the first time we're including the warming shelter with the homeless count, so that'll be interesting. The process is very informative and also quite humbling when you see the circumstances that people find themselves in. Unfortunately, many of them are veterans. So
Yes, most of us are going. In fact, Paul and I are going next Monday to finish. I think we're near the finishing off of it, but it'll be great to get all those statistics. And in deference to the two commissioners leaving, that leaves us all 10 minutes apiece. But we won't do that. So I'll start with Commissioner Smith.
I'm going to pass in deference to time, and I'll comment next week.
Commissioner Savas.
Well, I'll just be brief. I think it was earlier mentioned by the chair, talked a little bit about sewer, and believe it or not, part of that district that we're having the capacity issues, or really, frankly, is the other side of Oatfield Ridge for the most part. So there is a capacity issue. This is a relevant topic. And what we talked about here tonight about how much infrastructure we have, whether it's roads or sewer, water, where I think we're in good shape with water in that area, but when you get over the other side, we have a sewer issue. And there's been so many deferred capital projects, especially on the Tri-City side of the world. Gladstone's affected by that, West Lynn and Oregon City. And we will be convening a group of folks here probably in the next month or two, I hope, to go over this, to kind of cover some of the deferred costs and what that really means. We're not just at capacity, we're over capacity. We are, according to staff, 60% overloaded on one particular asset of the treatment train at Tri-Cities. That is a huge issue. It's, if I had my druthers, I'd roll the clock back and maybe make a few decisions differently, but these decisions were made prior to me becoming a commissioner. But I think it's imperative to recognize the environmental risk that we're putting and the risk upon our economic development when we really don't have much in the way of capacity. We might have an estimated way to get maybe 2,000 more people hooked up, but we are literally at the point of coming over the top of those tanks, and that freeboard is almost a misnomer in this case. It's so bad. So that discussion will occur, and I think it's just important to note that there is going to be a dialogue in this community.
This last Saturday, I think all the commissioners attended the Stand Down event helped with by our Clackamas County Veteran Services, where they were trying to get essential needs to homeless vets specifically. It was a great event, and boy, what a grand amount of volunteers that was assembled through our VSO and our Veterans Department. I attended the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization meeting last Friday. It ain't a question of if, it is a question of when, whether it be flood, high winds like the Columbus Day storm, or the proverbial shake that they say that we will get someday. Went to the AMR annual banquet. It is great to see these brave, courageous, compassionate people get awarded for their very hard work and sometimes very dangerous work. I just attended this morning, as did Commissioner Savas, the Westside Economic Alliance Legislative Agenda talk for both Washington and Clackamas counties. Our Clackamas County Public Government Affairs Director, Gary Schmidt, was there and did a great job. At one particular time, there was an uncomfortable question, and Gary had the appropriate answer. Thank you for asking that question, and then went silent. But it was answered, but it was a bit humorous and lots of fun to do. This last week, we went through just yesterday the code enforcement, another controversial department at times, and made some decisions about how that department should proceed after a performance audit was done on it here about a year ago. And I think we're making great headway with that department. I'm going to not read the rest of the things I've done, but just say I want to thank everybody for listening here today. This is rather a long meeting for us of late. I think we set the record last week at an evening meeting, 57 minutes. But we really appreciated the people who showed up, and I appreciate everybody who's watching out there and has taken their precious time to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, there being no further business before the commission this day, this meeting is adjourned.